wanting to experience more, and knowing that we're not meant to do this alone.
Welcome to Chronicles of the High-Powered Female CEO. You guys, I'm so excited today to bring to you Rhonni as we are winding down this season of this show. I am really excited about the next and final two interviews that we have. And today we get to speak with Rhonni, who is our lucrative and wealthy theme park, super fun, amazing person to bring to you today. Welcome, Rhonni.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Tell us about who you are and how people typically know you.
So my name is Rhonni DuBose, and people typically know me as an empire builder within a very specific niche, which is outdoor seasonal events, theme parks, music festivals. I have a plethora of businesses. I've built my wealth by building lots of different businesses under an umbrella of outdoor, I call it experiential retail. So I'm known to be a thought leader in the industry. I sit on advisory boards for some of the largest parks in the country, and I'm on speed dial for GMs all over the country.
So cool.
And yes, I sometimes get to live inside theme parks.
That was what I was just going to say. She literally just told me before we got on that she has an apartment that she stays in on the theme park. Tell us about that.
So my busiest show is in the fall. I have restaurants within, my husband and I have restaurants within the largest Renaissance festival in the US. And that is just north of Houston, Texas. And it's open for 17 days and gets 35 to 40,000 people a day. And it is, if you include there's a 200-acre campground just for guests. And so I want to say the park is 40 acres. I'm not actually positive about that, but we have an apartment inside there because as food vendors, even though the park's only open 2 days a week, I'm catching trucks and deliveries and having crew come in for prep, and park management would rather not be the one that opens the gate at 6 a.m. So I get to live on site. And mind you, there's only like 12 people that are allowed to live on site. So it's really exclusive and lovely and landscaped and beautiful.
That's so fun. You know, I hadn't even heard of a Renaissance, do you call it a Renaissance theme park, right?
Well, here's the deal. Renaissance festivals are a thing, and there are hundreds of them in the US. And that ranges from a weekend tent show that's going to happen on a college campus to big permanent parks with permanent structures. Yeah. And I lean towards the ones with permanent structures, partially because I began as a designer builder. I fell in love with a carpenter 32 years ago who built in these parks. And when I ran away with the circus, I ran away with this circus. And as somebody that I'm a lifelong learner, so every time I just kept teaching myself things so that I could build a career within that. So I learned building codes, and I designed buildings that we would build as a contracting company for artists and food vendors. And then over time, basically when we realized that we were dramatically underinsured and still walking top plates for a living, we started buying businesses and building businesses within the industry. And with that, because we were builders, our nut was a little lower, and you didn't have the friction that happens when you're trying to explain to a builder what you want, especially if what you want is very specific and something no one's ever seen before. So we could just build it. And much of our wealth was created by building businesses, running them for a while, and then selling them as businesses. My husband's a worker and I'm a planner. So, and we're both workaholics. So it worked out really well.
And you two, so now you two have been married, did you say for 31 years or together for 31 years?
Together for 31 years. We've been married for 20.
Oh, that's so lovely. And I guess that's to me, that just brings all this curiosity around your partnership, around your marriage, because to be, is that
You just brought me a cup of tea.
Oh, I love that. How have you made your relationship work when the two of you are so busy doing all this nuts and bolts over here? What about the romance and stuff? How have you guys navigated that over the 30 years?
Well, there's a couple tips I have. One is really know your strengths and let someone be in charge. So if it's planning or finance or strategy, I'm in charge. And if it is engineering or construction or even just, my husband Phil is he's very efficient. Things he designs are very efficient. So sometimes I can just have him, would you stand in this room and imagine pulling something out of an oven and where the table needs to be and what am I not seeing? And so he'll come in for that. But if that's my shop, then I still get the final word, as he gets the final word with his shops. And even at home, I have the final word on the inside of the house and he has the final word on the outside of the house. And that came from us having been design builders. And nothing is more frustrating when you're trying to get something done than having a board of directors or a partnership that can't make a decision. So we've said for years, it's I can fix any decision except for indecision. So, and we can always, like I said, we can go back and change things. But as a general rule, we let each other really run with our strengths.
So, okay, because, and I work with couples, right? And I often work with these, right? You would be considered a power couple, is you're working together and you're also married. And so, and what you're describing sounds so fun, this design. And then he's the builder that makes the dream come true. And oh my gosh, I love that. So, but what I know is that those kinds of finding your groove and this is my place and this is your place doesn't just happen. What's your what was your biggest blow up where you now you can look back and laugh and say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we figured that out?
Well, we had our biggest blow up happened. We both had a blind spot. And the blind spot was how much work happened at a desk, because our work had been so physical. And so yes, we could see a design that came out of something, but then doing the books at the end of the show or the end of the season, I didn't consider it work and it didn't look like work. And so we start up our work season again and I hadn't had a break. And so I would be fatigued and not excited about moving boards and deciding on paint colors, and we had a blow up and we had that same thing happen a few years in a row, a few Aprils in a row, we'd have this thing happen. And I was like, this can't happen again. This can't happen again. I will design an apartment in this building that we just built for our business. You can have the trailer, because we were full timing in a trailer at that point. And we'll figure out we'll still run businesses together, and he was like, wait, you want to break up? I said, I don't want to break up. I just never want to have this conversation again. And so, and like from a hiring a laborer standpoint, I wasn't pulling my weight. I couldn't work the kind of hours that I normally could. And it was like, now we got to hire another person because you're not doing your thing. And I physically had, I had like mentally hit a wall and couldn't. So I was like, all right, well, maybe I don't do this. Maybe I get a job in an office somewhere because I could do that anywhere. And then we said, well, neither of us wants to break up. Let's back up and figure out what it is. And then we dove into it because it's like the fact that it came up more than once and it was always the same time of year, it was obvious that there was something we weren't seeing. And so we just kind of dove into it. And we were so busy working our business, we didn't have time to run our business at that point. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of I want to say it was the friction point of us realizing that I needed to pull back to run the business and not be, we can hire a laborer that can move more boards than me. And I'm just making decisions, right? So, but at the time we were so locked into hours on an invoice to a client equals money that it felt like I needed to be working there because that was what was bringing money in to us. We were still building our own independent businesses, but there wasn't enough there yet to really support us at the time. And then with that in mind, within the next 2 years, I hired someone to do all my bookkeeping, which bought 3 months of my year.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like, wait a minute, because nobody there's a specific person that loves that kind of work, and thankfully they exist.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I will say for me, I'm good at spreadsheets and I'm good at math. But energetically, I got to that from a place of fear. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't grow up with money. And I watched my parents not plan well for retirement. And so it was it was some mindset work for myself to be able to sit to my numbers, not in fear. I even did tricks like we use a lot of credit cards that give us points or miles or whatever. And if I knew it was a time of year that there wasn't a lot of money for me to be looking at, when I'm facing my bills, I would look at those balances and think about their value so that I felt wealthy before doing the bill paying. Mm-hmm. That was because all I really was trying to do was change my own energy about it.
Yeah.
And, but so that was my trick. I go, how many membership reward points do I have? I could go to Europe for 2 weeks. Okay. Now we can pay the bills. Right.
I love that.
It's we all have our wacky little tricks, and that's one of mine.
I love that. What would you say? So I haven't heard you mention no children.
No children. We built businesses, and our businesses being in theme parks, and mind you, they're seasonal. So it's like I'm in for 30 years, 29 actually. We had multiple businesses. One year we had 12 different businesses inside a theme park, a summer theme park that's 40 miles outside of Manhattan, just as the mountains begin. It's in Tuxedo, New York. And when we first did that, I hired for the person that we worked for that had the food program. And I would hire 135 kids in a summer. And by the time we started our own shops, some of which our first food shop we traded labor for.
Wow.
For the guy that we had worked for years. But the kids that we had hired, we had been managing shops and these kids had worked for us. So then we'd hire their younger siblings, and then we've hired children of people who worked for us. those are, we had that piece of parenting that is mentoring people into another stage of their lives. That's like the piece that I probably would have missed about not having kids.
Right.
And I mean, we're going to New York City in a couple weeks. We're going up for 8 days in the city, and those kids are going to come into town and meet us. It's my husband's 70th birthday, and we are going to spend a week, and different people are coming in with their kids to meet us for different meals and go to museums, and that's how we're celebrating.
How cool. How neat. So tell me about what are the things then that for you are really precious or even sacred, things that you hold close to your heart?
Quiet time, green space. And that has, I kind of built a life full of it. You know, like there's no highway noise where I work. I'm in a dozens and dozens of acre theme park that has been built in a way that you can make an escape when you enter it. And so we didn't realize we didn't live with road noise until we bought a house next to a road and went, whoa, this place is really noisy. But my husband and I are some of the people, we are really good at being alone together. Like we really enjoy company, but we also enjoy our own pursuits. And so we're quiet people. And our schedule has shaped up in such a way. I mean, my businesses are only open to the public on weekends. So yes, I'll be surrounded with a team for the 3 months. There's a month of opening and then 2 months of running a show. But that's 5 or 6 people, you know, who I'm basically living on top of for that time. And then we come home, and home is, we've got 32 acres, 2 miles from the beach. It's in a forest. It's lovely. And I can hide out here and work on my projects and talk to my internet friends and have that time. I can walk. If I get up to walk in the morning, I am all year long in a private park of some type, whether it's a theme park or it's my own property. And that kind of spaciousness to my schedule is really important to me.
That's so cool. And I think it's also really like beautiful where you and your husband, again, I'm like just listening for these little parts with your husband, that you are comfortable just being quiet together because you're also so good at working together. So that's really cool and unique, I think.
Yeah.
That silence together piece is something kind of funny that I feel like can be sort of telling about a relationship, you know, if you can be comfortable being silent together, or if you secretly feel like, you know, resentful or whatever, you know, like all the things that can happen in that quiet space.
Mm-hmm. I think, now I will say, having occasionally worked in 2 different places, like if we had show overlaps, being quiet with somebody involves like feeling the vibe, right? Which gets difficult if you spend, it's like at 3.5 weeks, you're not, if your communication's not verbal, you know, like now we can see each other and have a FaceTime call or something. But there was a time when it was like, okay, this is too long because you didn't understand what I meant when I said that. And you would have if we were in the same space, you know? So we've learned over time, because when we did 6 shows a year, there would be times that we'd be leapfrogging from place to place, opening the next show while someone else is running a show for 7 years, perhaps.
Wow.
I would spend September working weekdays in Houston and weekends in New York.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was hard.
So hard. Wow.
But because I have apartments in different places, I was in my own bed at the other place. So that worked out. And it just kind of, it evolved. We went from having a trailer that we moved from place to place to building businesses with apartments above them.
Mm-hmm.
And not knowing that that was going to give us a freedom to manage two things at once that we hadn't known we were going to need.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So you talked about this quiet space and spaciousness in nature. Is that what you would have said when you were a little girl? What was precious to you when you were a little girl?
When I was a little girl, I wanted to be an archaeologist. And now I can look at that and go, oh, because I wanted to go out into the wilderness and find things, you know? So on some level, I could see that. And my treasured time was in my room reading Bullfinch's mythology. So I've always really appreciated quiet time for myself and the ability to not have to engage for at least part of my day.
So cool. That's neat to have had that that awareness too. That's so neat. I've got maybe two or three more questions that I want to ask as we wrap up this interview. And one is you're at a slower, steadier pace, and you don't have to be at 6 shows a year or whatever, right? What does this, let's say you're at the top, what does this feel like that's different than what you expected it to feel like?
Part of my joy in all of this has been the creativity, the creating new things, creating new businesses. And now I'm at a level that the businesses I have are so big that I can't be creating more businesses for myself, not and have the spaciousness that I want. As I mentioned, my husband's about to turn 70. And so we're looking at what's it look like when there's not two of us working. And within this entire 30 years, I have mentored and coached people on their own empires within this industry, because I knew so many facets of it. And I love the idea that you can do what you love and find a way to make a living at it. And sometimes it means doing 7 different things that you love, because none of them are actually enough for you to make a living at it. So I've coached people, I've mentored people who have now gone on to having their own businesses, and I'm helping somebody with the brainstorming for their business was the piece I didn't, that was the bridge that I had to make, because I'm ideaphoric. So it's like, oh, I could do this. And so by allowing myself to do that for friends and clients, now I can settle into the empire that I've built and the amount of work, physical work that I want to do in a year, because I still love running restaurants. There is a back brain piece of you that is fed in the act of handing a human being food. Right? There's just something really primordial about how it feels to feed a person. And I still want to do that. So the shop I have is the food shop that I'm not going to sell, as I've talked about building things and selling assets that are businesses, is I have a tea room and a bakery and a formal tea event and a hipster tea bar downstairs. And I love it. And that business does, like, if it were open all year, it would be a multi-million-dollar operation, but it's only open for 17 days. So that I want to keep, and I want to have enough spaciousness around it to deal with something that's that high volume. So I've figured out that the bridge was, let the Ideaphoria be happening for other people.
That makes so much sense. That
it is a challenge. It's like, I can't keep opening businesses. What am I doing? You know, if what I want is spaciousness and time, then opening another business doesn't make sense. So
I love that. Oh, I love that. Where my next question is, where do you feel the most vulnerable today? What feels difficult or vulnerable to you?
My mentoring and coaching, 9/10 of it that I've done for these years has all been hand-picked people who knew me, who reached out to me, who knew of my reputation. And as I look to moving that to, like, if I'm going to have time and space and quiet, then I'm moving this business online for the first time. And how do you communicate honestly and clearly and openly in a way that people get who you are? Like, that's all still new to me. I am in the beginning of this. I'm planting the seeds, you know, and I really, my husband will probably retire within 2 years. And so I'm in what is very possibly going to be a 2-year process of moving all of my consulting and coaching online and building a suite of things that I've been teaching people in person for decades, you know, and that's new. That's a completely new toolbox. That is not anybody knowing they like my vibe, you know, which is where I've come from. You know, it's like, oh, we work really well together. How does that happen on the internet? So I would say that would be a spot that still feels pretty vulnerable right now.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah, it's like among those who knew you, you were the go-to, and then you come into this sea of all these people who have similar messages, but it's like clearly what I'm doing is completely different. But how to get people to hear that and see that, and that makes so much sense to me.
Yeah. One of my little taglines in TikTok is Biz Dev Coach for Weirdos.
Yes.
So it's like, because I'm used to helping people build something out of a lot of disparate pieces. And I would, in trying to take courses to learn some of the how, I kept ending up in rooms of people who had never been in business before and spending all the time where I was trying to get coaching them on business practicalities, you know. No, strategy could be your friend. So there was a learning curve for me of, I spent like my first year of doing of buying coaching for myself, specifically looking for how projects. And again, because that's the industry I come from, this is how we do this. And then you have this. So I've just made it to where I'm in circles of women that earn the kind of money I earn. I'm not, and they earn more money than me, and some earn less money than me. But I had, in a lot of those first vehicles and containers, I was an outlier. I mean, and I'm an outlier because what I do is so weird, but there wasn't a lot of common ground amongst the people in the course. And now I'm in a marvelous mastermind, and with people that do completely different things, but kind of playing with the same numbers. One of the things that happens at the top is at some point you run out of people with whom you can talk about numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And being comfortable with numbers involves being able to talk about numbers. Being able to increase your numbers involves being able to talk about numbers. And so I had to find circles where that worked, where that was okay. And it wasn't opening myself to more risk, or, we have a lot of fear around talking about numbers. So it took some time, because again, that whole online coaching, consulting industry was completely new to me. All my stuff had been real world.
That makes so much sense. I follow Rich Litvin. Are you familiar with him?
No.
He's, I think you'd really like him. He's a great business coach, and talks a lot about the online space and just building business and stuff. But anyway, one of the things he talks about is being in spaces where you're not the most interesting person in the room, and how important that is.
Yeah. It's hard for those of us that are interesting.
And I think that it's that, like, I think as any business builder will go through that, where you recognize you've outgrown the spaces that you're in. And at first you think that's what you want, because you want everyone looking to you for with the advice and whatever. But then you realize you're not really growing. It's not really a lot of space to grow in those places. So then you have to go get uncomfortable and get around people who have done even more than you've done, or people who, think differently.
It's exciting.
And it's exciting. Exactly. Yeah. So I love that. Okay. My last question for you, Rhonni, is tell us about a time that was the most fulfilling experience you've had in your life.
I got a phone call from someone. So for a long time, the majority of my mentoring happened not necessarily mentoring somebody on a project, but it was the secret sauce that I used for having an exemplary and stellar team. So basically anybody that got into middle management with me entered a mentorship program as I grew them to be amazing. Your goal, you're always trying to reproduce yourself as you're creating middle management. And so it would be like a multi-year process of somebody being a manager for me at a show or more than one show, and going through this process. And I got a phone call out of the blue from somebody who had worked for me 4 years prior. And he said, I know it's late, but I have to tell you that I am sitting here arranging money on my bed that I made today with my own business. And it's a bigger pile than I've ever seen. And I could not have done this without you. It was just like, it was the best thing ever. It was the best thing ever. He says, I'm sorry if I woke you up. But it's like 11:30 at night. And I was like, why is he calling me? Let's see what's wrong. Because it's like, this person would not call me at 11 o'clock unless something was wrong. They had a challenge, or, I needed to help him figure something out. No, he called to say thank you. My eyes are wet just telling you this story. So
that's so cool. How many years had you guys worked together?
We worked together 3 or 4 years. So it was like as long afterwards as we had worked together. He and I worked at multiple shows a year. So we probably spent 7 months of the year together for 3 years.
That's so cool. And I think that says so much about the kind of person that you are. So often in those kinds of arrangements, it's like, I'm pouring into you so that you can just give back to me. But it says so much about the kind of person that you are, that you're just delighted to see that he's even taken off on his own, which at this point doesn't benefit you financially, at least. But that's so beautiful.
Yeah. I want anyone that has worked with me to have a better, richer life for having worked with me at all. And sometimes that means they've gone off in a completely different way. And that's that parenthood piece that I get, that I didn't get by having children of my own,
Yeah.
watch them grow up.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Rhonni, thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to share that I haven't asked you yet, or that you want to just be able to express before we wrap up today?
If people want to watch me stumble my way online, I spell Rhonni, Rhonni, as you can see on the screen, and I'm at Rhonni.com. I have a Rhonni Facebook page. I am Rhonni Rocks on a couple of different pieces of social media because I rock so many different things that it just kind of fit. And I'm pretty transparent about my processes. So I'm still an advisor in theme parks. So some containers are going to be more focused. Like at this point, my TikTok is nothing but behind the scenes for theme park work. But my other thing, my courses I'm creating are ending up on Rhonni.com. And
so great. We've got your website linked in the description.
Oh, fabulous.
And then you're tagged as well, so you guys can go follow her on whatever platform you're watching on. And what a neat, after having invested personally in so many different online coaches and things, I feel like what your expertise brings to this conversation is such a breath of fresh air that so many people need and that they're not getting. It's like, so much of, I think, the conversation in the online business world is almost like, how can you just use social media to manipulate people into buying from you? And I feel like what you are talking about is actually like really bringing real, super amazing things onto the planet, and then turning that into a lucrative business. And I think it's so needed. Your edge is really, really cool. So I'm super excited to watch you thrive in the online space. Thanks so much for being with us today, Rhonni. This was super fascinating. And thank you guys for watching. We're wrapping up this season of Chronicles of the High-Powered Female CEO. We've got just a few more lined up. And so stay tuned for those and go give Rhonni a follow. Thanks, guys. Bye.